Hello, everybody. Welcome to Driftin' and Driftin', Chapter 2. Yours truly, Reverend Billy C. Wirtz here. My guest this evening is the one, the only Mr. Tommy Castro. Tommy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right, all things considered. You know, just it's hotter than hell here in California at the moment.
It stays warm down here in Florida as well. I can certainly relate. But we have a really good we've had a really good response to these interviews, and you know it's always fun because people see you on the cruise and they see us play, and finding out more about you as an artist and how this whole thing evolves, and talk to us about the cruise because you have a much an even upper level of involvement with it that I'm really interested to find out about. Why don't you roll back, tell me how you first got into playing music.
Wow. I had an older brother, and he's 6 years older than me, and he controlled all the music in our house when I was a kid. It was his record player, and it was his records for most of when I was a little kid until I got out buying my own records. You know, I started buying my own records right after the Twist came out by Chubby Checker.
Right.
You know, little did I know it was a Hank Ballard tune, but Chubby Checker had a hit, and I dug that song. And I even won a Twist contest when I was in school.
Wow. Now I'm impressed. Okay.
So I started buying my own records about that time, and whenever my brother was not around, I would play his records and I would play his guitar, because by then he was playing guitar a little bit and playing in a rock and roll band, sort of a top 40 rock and roll band. They were playing Beatles songs and Stones, and even slipped in a little Paul Butterfield blues band every once in a while, and something by the Yardbirds or something like that, and some British sort of blues stuff. But anyway, I just loved it. Was music, it was rock and roll, and that kind of got me started.
Okay, so shortly after this, I'm sure you began to tune in like the rest of us. You know, I discovered Elvis at about 11, and like 12 and a half was when I discovered Butterfield and blues. Where was it for you when you first started going, man, what is this cool stuff?
Well, on the radio, I remember the early days of FM radio. It was so cool. They would play everything,
Where was this?
Well, San Francisco Bay Area. So I grew up in San Jose, California, and we had a rock and roll station down there. FM was sort of a new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I still had an AM radio in my car.
Right.
And the best thing that ever happened to me with the AM radio is Elvin Bishop would come on with Party to the Cows Come Home about every 15 minutes when that was a hit. And but eventually we all got hip to FM radio, and the format was wide open in those days. There weren't a lot of commercials yet, and guys could play whatever they wanted, and they'd play everything from the Doors to various folk artists and all kinds of psychedelic music. But every now and then my ears would really perk up, when they'd play something by the Stones or Cream, or I started hearing stuff by Johnny Winter and Taj Mahal. Bacon Fat was in high rotation on one of those stations, man. And that turned me on to Taj. And I remember hearing Dr. John on the radio in those days, and maybe even heard Bobby Bland doing, I think it was doing, somebody write my mother, tell her the shape I'm in. What's that song?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of.
Sure.
You know the tune. I'm
going down slow
on the name of the song right now. But that kind of stuff. And of course, Albert King, Blues Power. The whole thing, they would play it, 18 minutes long, Blues Power from live at a Fillmore.
Right.
So that was it. I just, with all the stuff that was being played on those stations at the time, that was the stuff that always jumped out at me. So I started to look on the back of the record covers and, for information like everybody else. You would go to the record store and look for records, and I can't remember exactly when I heard Michael Bloomfield play, but that he really knocked me out, him and Elvin. And I started following them, and I realized that Bloomfield talked a lot about B.B. King.
Right.
And so then I got a B.B. King record. Well, you know what happens then.
Sure.
You really figure it out. Then you go, aha. And I had some Jimmy Reed records and stuff like that. Anyway, I just always gravitated toward blues and R&B and soul music and roots rock and roll. That's still what I'm doing. It's exactly what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once it starts, it pretty much stays. I was thinking of that the other night, and I was thinking about, excuse me while I adjust my thing here. At any rate, I was thinking of how little my musical tastes have changed, since I was that age. I mean, once I discovered blues, once I discovered that hardcore quartet gospel, I was off and running, and it's pretty much stayed the same. So you start playing, you're in the area, you're playing around. Where does it turn the corner and you decide, I think I can make a living at this? You start hitting the road. Did you get a record deal first, or were you out there on the road just beating it out?
Well, I was a weekend warrior. I always had some kind of a day job going on, and I would play with my friends on weekends, and we'd get together, different people's houses, and jam. And then once in a while you think, hey, let's, maybe we can get a job, maybe we can get a gig somewhere playing.
Oh boy.
It would usually be for free or beer or something like that. But I just kept doing that, and eventually I got in a little bit better bands. And fast forward, a blues club opened up in my town in the middle 80s. So, I'd been playing music for fun for many years. The blues club opened up in my town, and that's what I really liked the best of it. It was never any blues gigs, when I was a kid. When I was good enough to play, there weren't very many gigs. So this little club opens up, JJ's Blues in San Jose, and they start having blues on Sunday afternoons. It was just a shotgun bar, just like a Chicago blues. And they had blues on Sunday afternoons, and to sell drinks, and the guy would have barbecue, and that went so well. People would pack that place and line out the door. That he started doing it on Saturday nights, and he started doing it on Friday nights. The next thing you know, he had it 7 nights a week, and I started hosting the jam sessions down there on Sunday afternoons, and then I got quite an education. All the real good blues players came out, and they would all teach me stuff. A couple guys in particular. Piano player, a friend of mine named Richard Palmer was a good friend of mine, and he would feed me stuff. He'd give me tapes of Freddie King and Elmore James and stuff like that. My other friend Frank DeRose, a bass player, these guys are still good friends of mine today. But Frank wrote the book on blues bass playing. He wrote 2 books for Mel Bay on actually playing.
Oh, he literally wrote the book. Okay.
He literally wrote the book.
Right.
But he would hand me, these guys all looked at me and said, this guy's got a good feel for this music, but he needs an education.
Yeah.
So they would feed me all the cool stuff. And that's basically when I started getting gigs with a band called Night Cry, a local band. And at one point, I said to myself, won't go into the details of my daytime jobs, but I hated them, and I loved to play, and it crossed my mind one day that I was kind of wasting a lot of my life away doing stuff I didn't want to do, and I saw Chris Kane had got a record deal and was touring around the world and playing blues, and I just thought, man, I think I'm gonna give this as much effort as I've put into anything else. I'm gonna put in, because I was basically trying to start a business for myself. I didn't want to work for anybody 9 to 5 for wages. I wanted to be self-employed. So I kept trying different things, and one day it hit me. Why don't I just put all that energy into doing what I love to do?
Bingo.
And that's what happened, basically. I moved from San Jose up to San Francisco, about 50 miles north, and there was a lot better scene there. And I started playing little clubs around town, and the Dynatones picked me up as a sideman.
Oh, sure.
you know, Walter and those guys.
Yeah, they live here in Florida.
And then I really got an education.
Oh, bet.
That's when my education went. That was my college education in blues and R&B.
I don't know about you, but I've been around this business a long time. I've been with Sonny Lansom, anybody on that. There's nobody that has any more series of road stories than Walter Shufflesworth. Okay.
Yes, and
every time you have one,
he's got in the way of a good story.
What's that? Oh, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, we and I were talking last night, and I found it interesting because, you know, there are people when I was 13 and just learning how to, you know, play in the Gata Davida, I saw Muddy Waters, and Otis Spann was still with him.
Yeah.
I heard Can't Lose What You Ain't Never Heard, and heard him hit that octave, and it went through me like a lightning bolt, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
The people that are like, that change your career. I hear you keep mentioning Taj Mahal. Taj has had a major influence on you, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. It was just, you know, it was the first time I ever heard anything like that. Giant Step came out, and you know how every night, I was pretty regular record buyer. I would go probably every week. I'd buy a new record, you know.
Sure.
That was a lot in those days. You know, you could buy a record every week. But some of those records, like the Live at Cooks County Jail by B.B. King, you know, I wouldn't listen to anything else for a long time. And when I got Giant Step, it was the same thing. I put that on my turntable, and I kept listening to both sides because they were so different. But it was the first time I'd ever heard any country blues, and I fell in love with it. I couldn't play it. I kept trying. I really did. When I was a young man, I tried to play that stuff, and I didn't have the amount of focus or you know, I'm a little ADD, I think. I have some issues with learning, and that showed up big time in regular school, like grade school.
Show me one musician who doesn't have that.
But
you know.
I wanted to learn that stuff, but it was just really hard, and I kind of moved on. I was more interested in electric guitar at the time, playing with friends and stuff like that. But always loved Taj's music, and I still do today. And one of the big thrills for me about going on the Blues Cruise is that I got to meet Taj, and then I got to hang out with him every now and then. You know, you just pull up a chair every now and then, and you're having a bowl of rice put in or something like that, or a salad, whatever kind of whatever you're having. But you know, you might find Taj sitting there holding court, just talking to some friends, and I got to hang out and have dinner with Taj a couple times, and he's one of the most interesting people I ever met, and he's happy to share information with you. He loves to give you. He knows guys like me still need to learn stuff, you know, and he's happy to help me out.
So taking it from there, you know, the Blues Cruise, and I was sitting there, I was washing dishes last night thinking how the Blues Cruise has woven its way into my life. You know, they helped me get my knee fixed when I was, you know, I was in pain and I didn't have the money. They've done a lot of things for me. You know, my career is at several points, the Blues Cruise has done nothing but take it up a notch. And you're an integral part of that. And for people that are familiar with it, you know, it's not just a bunch of bands on a boat. It's much more to it than that. Why don't you tell us about your involvement with the cruise? And you know, Roger specifically wanted me to ask you about how you got started with the whole thing and how it's manifested itself. Well,
I somehow, you know, it was my turn to get booked on the cruise the first time. And it just blew my mind, like everybody, right? I mean, you stay up and jam all hours of the night, and you keep running into your friends, and you're catching up with people, and you're getting ideas from everybody. You know, you're watching all the different acts. I mean, you never get a chance to see music as much as you do on a blues cruise, because there's something going on. When you're done with one show, there's another show starting, or they're overlapping a little bit, and I find it. The hardest thing for me to do is to see everybody on the ship. I rarely get to see everybody, but I was having such a great time. And the thing that I think that my experience with the Blues Cruise, it might be a little different than some of the other artists, was that I really took notice at how much people love to watch us all get together and jam with no plan, with no rehearsal. And the average blues audience, you know, the person who comes to listen to this stuff, that it's really interesting for them, and they'll stay up all hours of the night to see people just get up and jam together. So I come up with an idea. I thought, well, this is great, but not everybody can get on this ship. We should try and take something like this out on the road. You know, get a few artists together, go on the road. We'll all get together at the end of the night and jam. And so I started the Legendary Rhythm and Blues Revue. And I called various artists up to see who might be interested. And long story short, I was able to convince Deanna Bogart, Ronnie Baker Brooks, and Magic Dick to go on the road with me. And
there you go.
and we, you know, so right away I had three very different types of artists. And
yeah.
And these are some of my best friends in the world now. I mean, they were some of the greatest personalities, the greatest, nicest, coolest people. The hang was tremendous, you know, and me and my band at the time, everybody was getting along great. And I had this big old New Jersey Transit bus that had been converted into a tour bus. The old Grey Goose, we called it. And we had my sound man, engineer, Steve Spurn, and my son Skyler were like, you know, came on board as a crew, and they would drive around in a separate truck. And we booked some gigs up and down the East Coast and a couple in the Midwest, and started this thing. And the only complaint we ever got about the show is it was too long, because we would all do a 30-minute set of our own, backed up by my band.
Right.
Like an old style review.
Yeah, like a review,
you know,
sure.
Everybody's backed up by my band. I'd come on first, play my set, and then we'd bring Magic Dick up, and then he would do 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the end of then we would take a break and do some merchandising. I mean,
Right.
take everybody out to the lobby and sell
Absolutely.
merchandise. And tell everybody, you can't leave because we're all going to get together and jam after this. And it worked really great because everybody did good business on the break. And then we'd go back up and jam, and we'd keep it fresh. Like my old friend Johnny Ace always said, keep it fresh, you know. Just we go up there without any plan, and see what happened. And it was tremendous. So needless to say, that show needed to be on board the Blues Cruise. Right. And then my original plan was to change the lineup every time out, or every so often change it up. And so today, I am one of the luckiest blues musicians on the planet because because of that review, Roger has us on every cruise.
Yeah. Oh, it believe me, it works. I mean, it's the highlight, and I've heard some amazing. I'll never forget hearing Shamika Copeland with
Curtis Salgado.
With Curtis doing "You're Gonna Make Me Cry."
I was there. That's one of the all-time greatest jams to ever happen on the Blues Cruise. And Mike Finnegan was calling the changes out. You know, he was telling everybody.
Finnegan, right.
Mike Finnegan was up there. Yeah.
People were screaming.
Yeah.
As was I. I mean, that's a
crying.
For those of you, for non-musicians, that's an O.B. Wright song, and they're not easy songs to cover. And you usually don't touch one unless you can do it. And they just burned it. Speaking of that, let's just veer off for a second here. Name me 2 or 3 songs, whether they're yours or somebody else's, maybe one of yours, a couple, that you always love playing.
Well, let's see.
I always love playing Drinking Wine Spodioti, you know.
Wow, that's a good one. You know, as far as my own songs go, I have so many different kinds of songs that it's really hard for me to pick one that I always love playing. But I have to say, I do a version of "Serves Me Right to Suffer" that goes into a boogie.
Right.
And it's kind of my own boogie because I learned a little bit from Ron Thompson. He was who I was trying to copy. I was trying to play like him when I started doing it. But you know how it is. You try to play like somebody else and you can't really get it. So you wind up with your own thing. That's my claim to fame, is not being able to copy anybody perfectly. I can only just kind of get the gist of it, and then it comes out my own way. And as it turns out, it's more like Magic Sam's boogie than it was a John Lee Hooker thing. But I did Serve Me Right to Suffer, a slow version, rolled into a boogie, and I always have a great time playing it. Yeah,
that's great. And the thing is, you know, we were talking that, which jumps into a second. Did you have another one you wanted to mention?
Any slow blues, not a minor blues. I'm not big on the minor blues, which is a kind of I think I have a defect, a blues defect, because every guitar player I know loves to play minor blues. I like the B.B. King, Buddy Guy, you know, major pentatonic stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not major pentatonic so much as it's just a major key, and you're playing blues scales over it, you know. But that's my favorite way to roll, because I can
just the basic.
I don't have to think about anything. I just go with what I feel, and that's always a blast.
Sure. Who's one artist, if people are listening to this, so they listen to what you have to say, if you were going to say, all right, when we get done with this, I want you to go buy one of my CDs. But at the same time, if you're going to go buy another CD, buy an artist, say a great guitar player that you probably wouldn't buy otherwise, throw somebody out. An old, one of the...
Well, I just man, I would say the first person that came to mind was Chris Kane. Get a Chris Kane record. He's got several really great releases out there.
What about Magic Sam?
Magic Sam, you know, there's all of the greats. The thing is that when it gets to the real, all the originators, the guys that everybody stole from, there's so many. You got Albert King is a must. You have to listen to Albert King. You have to listen to BB. Albert Collins is somebody you really have to listen to. Freddie King, you know, you have to listen to those guys. And then for something a little bit jumpier and swingier, I'd go to Gatemouth Brown, or Hollywood Fats, or you know, T-Bone Walker. You got to hear T-Bone. If you've never heard T-Bone play, that's a very strange approach to the guitar that he has, and beautiful, you know. So there's too many for me to keep track of.
Well, you've done well.
I would also say my two favorite, more contemporary from my era are Elvin Bishop and Taj. Because Taj's guitar playing, when people think about guitar players, you know, they think about lead guitar players, guys who are playing, you know, single note leads mostly.
Right.
And but if you ever watch a master of sort of country blues, combination of he uses Caribbean sounds in his music. He plays traditional blues, all different kinds of soul and R&B. But the way he plays the guitar, to me, is so soulful and rhythmic, and it takes so many hours of practice to be able to deliver a solid performance of that style of music on the guitar. And I'm always in amaze. When there's a Taj show on the ship, I'm right down front. It knocks me out every time.
Just watching, going to school. Absolutely.
Going to school, and I'm still going to school.
Sure.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
So real quick, next to Taj, who's the one artist, if you could open for any artist ever, who would be the one person you would have, you know?
Open for, like,
just
alive or dead?
Yeah.
Wow, because, you know, I've had the opportunity to open for quite a few of my heroes in life.
Right.
Ray Charles was probably the most, you know, the one time I opened for Ray at a big festival in Canada. And
How was that?
I was so excited. You know, there's 20,000 people in the audience, and I got to shake his hand. And anyway, that was great. But, you know, of course, we did those tours with B.B. King where we would open for him and Buddy all the time. But as far as somebody that I haven't had a chance to open for, man, I would say I like Gary Clark Jr. a lot. You know,
Who?
Gary Clark Jr. I'd like to open for him because he has a little bit different audience.
Yeah.
But those are people that really dig the blues, you know. I'd like to. There's too many to think of, Bill.
No, you've done good. You're doing great. This is wonderful. I mean, I don't even know.
Tedeschi Trucks is one of my favorite acts on the scene. You know, that are blues, but there's a lot of blues influence in there. But they're also, you know, crossover into jam band territory at times and more progressive music. You know, but I love them a lot. I love Derek's playing. He's one of the, okay, so there's a guy I left out, Derek Trucks.
There you go.
That guy.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on there?
Well, I'd say it's in the DNA, wouldn't you? I'd say it's in the genetics.
I know because I heard him play when he was 13 years old. I watched the videos and he was great then. It was always great. You know, and I used to, Joe Main, rest his soul, used to drive the bus for us on the road, and he was Derek's. You know, he used to work with Derek when he was a little kid. He used to look after him when he was. He said his dad and his uncle, you know, they would take him around to bars and put him on stage, and they could drink for free all night.
Yeah, I remember that. He used to be in Miami at Tobacco Road. Yeah. Right.
He said, and sometimes those guys would still be in the bar partying, and so, you know, Joe would be looking after him. So he told me a little bit about Derek's, you know, how he progressed as an artist. But I am so amazed at the sound that he's created for himself. That is really unique, you know.
That's great. Listen, we don't have to wrap it up right away, but before we go, I want to ask you, everybody hits a bump in the road. Mm-hmm. We all have careers and we all move forward, and every now and then we hit a bump.
Yeah.
It's the matter of sometimes it's not the knockdown, it's the comeback, you know, and you've obviously come back and you've done real good for yourself. And what would you say was the biggest bump that you had to get around, if you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a couple of things, and I don't know. One I'm still struggling with. I talked a little bit about this before, but I have a hard time. I really believe that when I was my whole life I've had some kind of some form of a learning disability. Mm-hmm. So. For instance, when I would be in class as a kid, and we had a reading assignment, everybody read faster than me. I had to read really slow to comprehend, you know. And when it came down to learning complicated material like math, I was just terrible at it, you know. And music is a lot like that for me. You know, the music, to really understand music theory and put a lot of that stuff to work, you know, so those are things that I struggle with today, trying to improve. I make improvements, but I make them really, really slowly.
I understand.
I'm always working on it. I'm always trying to get better at every aspect of my work, guitar playing, and songwriting, and overall knowledge of music, and being able to write, you know, compose better music. Just to learn more about music in general. And I still sit and listen to records and steal licks from guys. Like that's how I learned to play, just listening to records, and listening and picking it up by ear. That's mostly how I learned how to play. And I get a few things from different friends of mine. So I think that's probably the biggest struggle that I've had to deal with, and I still deal with it. But the one thing that I managed to get over was, you know, finally, after, it took me about 15 years of attempts at at quitting drinking and you know, various substances. I had a problem for a long time. I probably didn't actually accomplish that until I was like 48. I was 48.
Understand.
When I finally was able to put the bottle down and those other things. So, but from that point on, though, and then I wrote a really good record of material. I had a whole bunch of material after that.
There you go.
that album was called Soul Shaker. If you listen to Soul Shaker, you can hear
it's a great record.
You can hear the pain and suffering in there, because I also got divorced, and sobered up all at the same time, and that was a painful period. And man, the songs, I had blues songs coming out of my, well, you know, I had a lot of songs coming.
Well, like I always say, there's no bad events, it's just material.
Exactly. Yeah.
Listen, this has been absolutely wonderful. We need to do this again. Would you play us a tune before we go?
Why not? Let me see. You know, and so I am going to go ahead and do a little tribute to Taj. And
okay.
I hope he's not watching this, because he'll tell me exactly what's wrong with this.
Sing right up good and close to that mic.
Sing a little louder, I know.
There you
go. Bet you go fishing all the time, he been fishing too. Bet your life, your sweet wife, catch more fish than you. Many fish bites, you got to bleed. Now here's a little tip I'd like you. Fish bites, got good bait. I'm going fishing, yes, I'm going fishing. Baby, going fishing too. I went on down to my favorite fishing hole, grab me a pole and a line. Throw my pole in, caught a 9-pound catfish. I'm home for one time. Any fish bites, got good bait. Now here's a little tip I would like you. Fish bites, got good bait. I'm going fishing, yes, I'm going fishing. My baby going fishing too. Baby bird about to run me out of my mind. Can't go fishing with you. So I took him on down to the fishing hole. What do you think that he did? What a great big fish at the bottom of the pond. That go real gone. The fish bites got good bait. I'm going fishing. Yes, I'm going fishing. Baby going fishing too. Put him in the pot. Put him in the pan. Cook it really nice and brown. Make a batch of buttermilk, hope cakes, mama up. You put the things and jump them on down. Any fish bites, got good bait. Now here's a little tip like a bait. Fish bites, got good bait. I'm a going fishing, yes, I'm going fishing. My baby going fishing too.
That was great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bill, this has been a blast, man. It's great talking to you. It's good to see you, too.
The same, man. All my love. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Driftin' and Driftin', Tales and Tunes from the Legendary Rhythm and Blues Cruise. And our guest today has been the great Tommy Castro. Thank you all so much. I'm Reverend Billy C. Wirtz, and I'll see you all the next time around right here on Driftin' and Driftin'. Thanks, Tommy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye now.
We'll see you on that ship one day.
Absolutely. Bye-bye now. Thanks again, buddy.
Some people got love, man, they got money too. You call that a win-win? I wish I was in their shoes.